Dear participants, welcome to this foundation program in Heutagogy. Today our point of discussion is the role of an educator in Heutagogy. If we execute a comparative analysis between the role of a teacher in a traditional framework and the role of a teacher in the framework of Heutagogy, you will be finding a huge difference. In the traditional framework, the role of an educator was something like a sage on the stage who is delivering valued educational inputs, but the participants or the learners are kept in a passive mode. They are just accepting the resource delivered from the lecturer or the educator. But in the framework of Heutagogy, the relationship dynamics between an educator and the learner is totally different. Here, the learners are granted maximum autonomy. An educator plays the role of a facilitator or coach, and he renders need-based support to the autonomy-driven, self-paced learners. He engineers diversified interventions for solving the problems of the learners and facilitates their progression towards the desired goal. Now let us consider the three specific roles of an educator in the framework of Heutagogy. First, an educator is playing the role of a facilitator in psychosocial competency development and effective learning. Secondly, the educator is playing the role of a performance coach with a result-oriented approach. Finally, he is playing the role of a technical mentor and subject-specific guide who is facilitating the learners in conceptual elucidation. First of all, we have to understand that competency is causally related to performance. So, if the competency is administered properly, automatically performance is destined to improve. Development of cognitive competencies within the learners upgrades the learning performance under the influence of the facilitators in the framework of Heutagogy. Educator plays an instrumental role in facilitating the development of cognitive competencies within the students, and eventually he is promoting their learning performance to a great extent. Let us be more specific regarding the tools and techniques of facilitation which are being deployed by the educator in the framework of Heutagogy. Here, the educator is playing the role of a facilitator and is presenting complex situational problems to the learners. Eventually, he is encouraging or motivating the learners to analyze the intricacies of such problems and to alleviate the problems by dint of their analytical thinking and critical thinking. Facilitator also inspires the learners to generate exclusive and unprecedented solutions to the problems by applying their creative thinking. So, if he is applying his creative thinking, then the solutions are totally unprecedented and exclusive, rather than the mundane solutions. Facilitator encourages the learners to unleash their creative potential in generating innovative concepts and paradigms. Facilitator motivates the learners to frame cases highlighting the strategies for ensuring human-centric development and the strategies for alleviating the problems in the social matrix. In the learning domain, facilitator guides the learners in leveraging authentic learning inputs. He is playing an instrumental role in facilitating the learners in the dilution of the cognitive load of the learners. The cognitive load is diluted by splitting the total volume of information into a series of learning contents, each with moderate volume of information. Facilitator makes it easy for the learners to comprehend and analyze the complex learning topics through the following interventions. As for example, He supports the learners in arranging the topics of learning in a sequential way from the simplest item to the most complex item. He encourages the learners to identify the cause-effect relationship among the different learning inputs. He is also motivating the learners to identify the points of affinity among the different learning inputs and categorizing them separately. Apart from the role of facilitator, in the framework of Heutagogy, educator is also playing the role of a performance coach. As a performance coach, the educator is empowering the learners in determining the different learning goals that are to be achieved in different milestones. The educator is also empowering the learners to chart out the learning process, to frame learning strategies that may be implemented in achieving the predetermined learning goals. He is triggering achievement motivation within the learners and fosters a goal-oriented behavior within them. He is also crystallizing a result-focused attitude within the learners. He is facilitating the learners to set different performance benchmarks at the different milestones, learning milestones in the pathway of learning. As a performance coach, the facilitator or the educator is also motivating the learners to self-evaluate, to evaluate their own performance. As for example, he facilitates the learners in detecting the performance gaps. What are the performance gaps? The difference between the predetermined objectives and the achieved outcome. Educator traces out the causative factors which are creating the emergence of such performance gaps. Is analyzing the causative factors, and finally he facilitates the learners in designing and engineering strategic interventions in bridging the learning gaps. In our next session, you will get acquainted with the different tools and techniques of facilitation that can generate beneficial impact upon the learners in the framework of Heutagogy. Thank you, dear friends.